Hi, this is Privateer Station, and today we're bringing you day 288 of Russian invasion into Ukraine. As usual, with Olexiy Arestovych, advisor to the Office of the President of Ukraine, Lieutenant Colonel, and Mark Feygin, Russian opposition politician. In today's stream, they discuss situation on the front, Putin acknowledged to be the failure of the year by Times Magazine, new explosions in Berdyansk airport in Zaporozhye, peace fund created by Western allies that, among other things, also deals with tanks Leopard 2, ninth package of anti-Putin sanctions, negotiations about the mutual exchange of people deemed to be collaborationists and arrested on both sides of the front, Americans' exchange of Russian arms dealer for a basketball player, Russian natural gas with a 25% discount, great deal for Turkey, and shameful mistakes by Speaker of Russian Ministry of Defense Konashenkov, as well as the statement of ex-Chancellor of Germany Angela Merkel about her involvement in Putin's rise to power. Enjoy! Dear viewers, glad to see you all on Feigin Live. It is Thursday, December 8th, 3 minutes past 10 in Kiev and 3 minutes past 11 in Moscow. And we have our usual guest, Olexiy Arestovich. Glad to see you here, Olexiy. Good evening. Day 288, and we have over 120,000 starting to watch the stream with us. 23,000 of you clicked the like button. You know what I'm going to ask, dear viewers. Please continue clicking the like button. That is very important. It brings more people to the stream. Of course, do not forget to subscribe to Feigin Live, to Olexiy Arestovich, and to the Privateer Station if you are listening or watching that in English. And let's start. Okay, let's start with the map. What do you think? Okay, let's zoom to Kherson. Over there is a fun island of Big Potemkinsky Island. Where is it? I don't see it. Let me show you. Do you see the mouth of Dnieper River? There is a system of islands there, and the big island is one of them. So what did they do? They put a joint detachment of special forces mobilized and some other brigade with a portion of artillery in it, and they're trying to control the mouth of Dnieper. I think their main task was to preclude our actions on Kinburskaya sandbar to the left of it, but it was being discussed in their messages. It's pretty far from that location though, but they did talk about that. And probably another task is to preclude us from dropping our troops on the left bank. And this is real fun. Our artillerists became rather happy, and now we have an interesting target practice in that area. We'll see about the results. The bold ideation of Russian command is good, but the location where they put them is not so good. So, we'll probably just shoot it up. Is it 1 battalion tactical group? A little less than that. And they're actually promising to increase their presence there, if everything will go okay. That does sound strange. Why would you leave the right bank to now try to drop your troops on these islands? Well, yeah, they understand that they're afraid that we'll start crossing the river. But, yeah, that's their actions to prevent that. Thank you for good target practice, so stay tuned. If we go to Zaporozhye region of the map, Melitopol, Mikhailovka, Takmak, around the main road from Vasilievka to Melitopol, that vertical road at about 7 or 8 p.m. from airport in Melitopol up top to the water basin. So they're regrouping there, but they're regrouping a little deeper from the front to preclude being hit by our artillery. If we go to Ugledar, where they try to capture Pavlovka, not too far. So here they're probably being guided by the same principle dim-wittedness and courage, they might aggregate more troops and try that operation again. So we'll see. They are running, they're continuing their offensives, their attacks on the Eastern Front. And if you listen to the news, there is a lot of activity. But if you get deeper, and start reading what's happening, they are talking about up to a platoon, up to a detachment. So platoon is 9 men. The next level up is about 27, maybe 32 if it's a different type, different group. So these are their crazy offensives. And there are a lot of videos now you can see from our UAVs that track them of 10 or 15 Russian brave soldiers trying to hide in the bushes and creep up to Ukrainian positions. Then they get caught by UAVs, get shelled, get attacked, and then they run back. Near Bakhmut, they intensified the tempo and the quantities of these ways they find to kill their troops about over our defense lines has increased over any reasonable measures. They were leading in terms of military suicide by attacking stupid targets, but right now they went so far ahead of any other part of the front, which actually poses a rather difficult situation for our troops because they just don't have time for respite. These guys are trying to attack us day, night, any time of the day, small group after small group after small group. And there were some signals today that our situation near Solidar is a little more difficult, became a bit more complicated. That's near Yakovlivka, right now in the middle of the map. There's no arrow next to it, the settlement on both sides of the gray and red areas. So they are trying to get to that Yakovlivka, and I don't see anything tragic in this, nothing major yet, but we do have some bloggers and some commentators who are screaming bloody murder, but I don't think they'll have much success on this front line. I was given that information that somebody cut a big road here from Slavyansk to Bakhmut. I was actually curious to pull the map and get into that, and no, it's not. It's just Yakovlivka, which is deeper to the right of the front, so even if that was captured, it's still too far from the road or cutting any supply lines. So I don't see any strategic threat there. Belogorovka, same attacks. That red arrow, they try to figure out our defenses. We are pushing back and going into some counteroffensive maneuvers. And also they are continuing to shell Kharkov region and Sumy region from across the border. They actually had a Shaheds attack on those cities recently, didn't have any success. So if you look at the from a strategic view on everything that's happening on the front, it's the phase of Russian tactical pressure that is getting intensified. They have been pretty active on the Eastern Front, and now they're amping it up. And that impressive decision to do something on the island, so that's peculiar. They're in the phase of trying to do some offensive maneuvers. We're not attacking them. We are burning through their efforts. We're destroying their infantry and their artillery and tanks. I understand that me here in the office discussing that gives you one perspective. I understand that soldier can be pretty stressed out there in the trench line, especially when they get waves after waves, even those are not too big. But they basically continue pressing, and we continue destroying them. An interesting fact, near Bakhmut, they are diminishing the amount of their artillery presence on the front, probably running into supply chain issue. Now they got tanks and aviation to be more active, which doesn't add more health to our troops, but it's an interesting observation. I think they're running out of artillery shells or something is happening with their logistics. So, as I said, their main slogan right now would be dim-wittedness and courage. That's what they're basically guided by. Okay. We have 276,000 watching us, 81,000 click the like button. Thank you, dear friends. We continue. Today, our main character with a glass, well, no, he had a champagne flute, somewhere that looks like the George Hall of Moscow Kremlin, confirmed that Russia is indeed hitting civilian infrastructure, but accused Ukraine of being the first to attack civilian target of Crimean Bridge, said Putin on a released video. And today, look at him, he is indeed acknowledging that they are conducting attacks on civilian targets. It's a sort of day of revelations, right? He might even talk about Izum and Bucha at some point. Yeah, I think that just broke through out of him from within. It just reminded me from a movie about, guys, that's me breaking the door. So in this case, I guess his title for that monologue that is recorded on video, guys, we have not stopped to continue doing big dumb things. And he was, by the way, acknowledged to be the failure of the year. So after the fourth flute of champagne, I think, he'll be standing there like in the old Soviet comedies and saying, oh, the water is warm now. And then he might even acknowledge that it's much easier to destroy things overnight than to create new things, and probably will sum the results of his phrase with that phrase of his reign. Oh, by the way, another date is coming up. The 100 years of Soviet Union on December 20th. This is an interesting sacred date for them. I'm mostly celebrating the fall of Soviet Union, so that date completely slipped under my radar. And we do have another day to celebrate. There's one of the Ukrainian military holidays on the same day. But Mark, he did talk about that to be the 20th, the day of the worst disaster of the 20th century of the fall of USSR. And by the way, I think that speech, that somewhat drunken speech, probably was a repetition of his speech to the Federal Assembly. Guys, we are attacking civilian targets. So if to sum up his speech, we have not started first, we don't really have much success, but we're not the ones to blame. Mark, he goes with a different logic here. Their logic is that they're defending a threat that was being imposed on them from Ukraine. You know that Ukrainian power plants are serious targets. They actually were planning to capture Russia. They're already aggregating themselves in columns, and even some of those power plants were thinking to surround Moscow. But those strategic bombers were brought up in the air in the nick of time and stopped them from crossing the border with Russia. They always respond. They never attack. This is so effed up. I'm just tired of commenting these idiots. That's not for long, Mark. Mark, we'll raise the flutes on the red square, and I'm thinking it'll be much faster than you think. When this effort will die, I'm just tired. When this happens, everything will be so rapid and so banal that you won't even feel the big change of epoch. It'll be a somewhat blurred message. It won't be one message. Putin died. It'll be probably a week or two of different messages with increasing intensity. And it'll be somewhat smudged. It's probably in a retrospect, we'll be looking at that day and saying that's when it happened. And looking at the change of power, the fight over that power, maybe even a small or big civil war in Russia over that. But we are living in times when big events of that scale very often get washed out. I don't know, Olexiy. If I get the message that he died, that he's gone, I'll be drunk for a week. We won't have streams for a week. You're not drinking, Mark, right? Well, I will become a temporarily drinking person in that case. This is a holy cause. I lived a quarter of a century under this S. Okay. Messages from Ukrainian media about the explosions near airport in Berdyansk area. This is happening right now, maybe an hour, a couple hours ago before our stream, and it seems like it was confirmed by the local occupation administration. Maybe you can support that information. Yeah, Berdyansk airport is being hit for 2 days in a row already. The first attack was very productive. There was 2 huge explosions and about 20 small ones, and they're probably continuing today. Well, the reason is do not stockpile military cargo in wrong places. They decided to create a small, well, not so small, military support facility there, and yeah, here are the results. Didn't come out as was predicted. That's the Ukrainian proverb. So another piece of news, Bloomberg said that Western allies are creating a peace fund, and among different financial aid streams that will be going through that fund, they're also talking about Leopards, the party of Leopard tanks that are being prepared for Ukraine. So if they, what do you say about that? If they do come, if they do show up on the front, that's a whole tank detachment. That's pretty awesome for our situation. They can solve a lot of tasks on the front. So what can you say? We have an ex-minister of Foreign Affairs, Pavel Klimkin, who produced an interesting sentence in a TV interview in bed with a journalist. That's a new show here. So, answering the question, why are they afraid of Putin who will die? He said they're afraid of any Putin, alive, dead, on the position, out of the position, retired, which is rather interesting for me. I would be acting in a much more decisive manner. Maybe not direct, but definitely more decisive. And in all these meetings, assemblies, interviews by media, I keep saying, guys, give us weapons and we will close that problem. You don't even need to participate in that. So you think they might have listened? Well, perhaps. I hope so. But if they do give us Leopards, a tank brigade of Leopard tanks, yeah, with crosses as back in the history, moving towards Russia, that causes up a lot of interesting visuals. And stopping a brigade of Leopards in step in an open field is a very sad proposition. It's pretty difficult to do so. It's doable, but it's very ungodly effort. So, another part that actually made me smile, that's a peace fund, especially if they will transfer them as a part of peace fund. So Putin never attacks first, and Europe in response creates a peace fund that transfers Leopard brigade to Ukraine. That would be a peculiar situation. Have you ever been in Leopard yourself? I know a lot about that. It's a good tank. Oh yeah, I've been inside one. In Germany, they were earlier models of Leopard at that time, but this is the tank that you can manage with a joystick, and they have an AC. Olexiy, imagine an AC in the tank. Oh, Mark, even the fire system is so amazing in this that AC is just a secondary. It's nice for human operators to have, but it's a very good professional piece of equipment. It should be able to win a duel with any Putin's tank just easily. Okay, in other news, international broadcasting of NTV, RTV, and some other of Russian channels are going to be interrupted. And I think that's the one that is being done through French satellites, and it's about to end the broadcast of these Putin's propagandist channels. I'm surprised it lasted that long, but finally they're getting to shutting them up. Can you also elaborate about maybe the ninth package, any personalization efforts? Mark, you and me somehow forgot about this topic, and there's been quite a few developments in it. New Zealand, Australia, Europe added more personalized sanctions. I did not really track them too tight, I'll look into it. But they continue slapping more sanctions. So do you think they can adopt the ninth package by the end of the year? I don't know about the plans of European Union, they're not reporting to me, but they might try to conclude the year with that ninth package, because if they don't do it now, when do you think it'll happen? Then there'll be holidays, January, then there'll be a new political season, so it'll be probably a big delay. I don't know if they'll be able to conclude that deal, but they'll definitely try. Yeah, probably right. Use the peace fund for these sanctions. Okay, I see Ukrainian and Russian ombudsmen are conducting negotiations about exchange of people who were arrested on different charges of collaboration with the opposing party in this war on both sides of the front. And Russian ombudsman spoke today that they're talking to a Ukrainian counterpart and they're preparing grounds for exchange. So it appears they're going, let's translate that to human language, they're trying to get back their agents. I was actually defending Roman Sushchenko, that was my last case in September of 2019. And I understand these are probably the people like one that they'll be trying to exchange with Ukraine. How many collaborants do you guys have? Is it hundreds, thousands? Well, in the summer, Mark, we had about 12,000 criminal prosecutions, criminal cases against collaborants with Putin's regime. So we can probably dig deeper and ask our chief of police to see what's happening there. Do you know you guys got brother of Tsarov, a few other big figures? Yeah, no, like in the movie. I took Astrakhan, I took that, I didn't take Shpak. Okay, in other news, there was an exchange today. They exchanged Greiner, American basketball player, for Russian arms dealer, Boot. My dead pal who was shot in Wagner when he visited them in Central African. He was the son of Gaydar Jamal, a well-known journalist. He served together with Boot in military. Boot was intel officer, military intel officer, and they were both serving in the same troop. And he always said that Boot was a rather warm character, but he always was specializing, he was always hustling and bustling and selling weapons for military intel. And back in the day, he flew to Thailand, where he was arrested and then extradited to United States. Obviously, he was selling arms for military intel, because in Russia you cannot sell even paper drawn machine guns. There'll be police all over you trying to shove a champagne bottle up your nether regions. So this guy was doing that obviously with agreement with military intel, and then he was after 10 years exchanged now for Greiner, who was arrested for what was it, some oils, some pot, whatever she had in her possession when she crossed the border. So you can maybe collaborate on that, elaborate on that and comment on that. In my days of attorney, I was defending Savchenko, Sushchenko, other Ukrainian citizens, very often it ended up in exchange. Very often these figures were exchanged at the end for some other figures of Russia. So it does look like, and they were often picking certain candidates to choose, so they were often waiting to see whom can they get from the other side. So it's almost their strategy. And what do you think? They cherry-picked that specific basketball player to exchange her for somebody? Well, yeah, I mean, that's legit theory. The other question is, do you think he's being invited back to Russia to be introduced to a sledgehammer? I don't know. Let's see what happens. I doubt it, but do you think he tweeted, he sang when he was there? Well, people usually share details, especially when they're imprisoned for a long time. And I think he's not too valuable figure right now. He probably already spilled everything he knew. And meaningfulness of an exchange probably doesn't matter. It's something you can manage, something you can create in the media. So for Americans, some arms dealer who was in prison for years and probably already spilled everything he knew and already served some time, might be not too bad of a proposition for a symbol of a basketball player. She's female, she's black, so that's more of a media statement. And Boot, speaking of him, I don't know if he's a serious figure. Back in the day, he was a prototype for that arms baron with Nicolas Cage. So for Americans, actually, it might be an interesting news piece when they exchanged their own female athlete for a brutal Russian arms dealer. Probably it's an adequate exchange for America. So, do you think they just exchanged whomever Russians asked for that player? No, there was a different piece of news there. I think Russians initially wanted to ask for some colonel, FSB colonel, that is being arrested. I think it's Krasikov who assassinated somebody in Berlin. No, I don't think that one. I think there was another one that they keep. But they did request that figure first, and Americans refused. So Boot is probably a second-tier figure that they chose. And Boot is a figure that doesn't have much meaning now. So that basketball player will probably make more media splashes after being returned. She'll probably be on Oprah Winfrey or somewhere else talking and conveying her tearful message, and the whole public will be in tears and happy for her. By the way, in Russia, Boot may actually have a good career if he's not going to be assassinated after, because some of those, like the guy who poisoned Litvinenko, he's now a congressman, and probably, a third times congressman. So there is an interesting opportunity option for Boot in Russia. Well, in Russia, most careers are done with the premise from Bat, the musical. And remember, there's a guy singing there at the beginning that in Russia, even when you're walking, you're regardless in prison. So, with a history of selling arms, with a history of sitting in jail for tens of years, accused of that and serving sentence. That is a very peculiar stance, very peculiar position he will be in Russia. So he will always have that prison somewhere on his horizon. In Russia, that's a normal state of things. There's always prison on your horizon. After a story like that, you can be even elected a president. This is a one-way story. There's always material against you. So, yeah, I mean, that's typical for Russia. Look at this piece of news. Turkey announced that they will be concluding negotiations for Russian natural gas and discussing an option to buy that from Russia at a 25% discount. Look at them. Yeah, I think Turkey is enjoying the position. They're in a position of, where else will you go, dear? And they're now waiting. They've waited for an opportune moment, and now Russia really doesn't have other options, doesn't have other buyers. So now here's Turkey saying, hey, come here, we'll buy it. I'm not a specialist in energy sources, but is it lower than their actual cost to produce? 25%, I don't know if it's lower the cost, but it's a quarter. In any case, it's a very significant part of profits. Well, you know what? We can also wait and see if Turkey will come and ask, hey, sell us oil as well. That'll be interesting, right? If Turkey comes and says, we'll buy your oil at a discount as well. So that first negotiation is just the initial lubricant of that deal, right? It's just a prelude. Oh, you mean they'll be buying that without any lubrication later, right? Without, and for half the price, because nobody else is. You've decided to not sell it to anybody in the West. Yep, you've narrowed your field of opportunities. Yeah, narrowed field. I'm not going to elaborate on that. Well, we're not exaggerating. That's what it is. Yeah, a narrowed opening. Anyway, our other notable figure on the Russian media side, Konashenkov, said that with a high-precision strike near Shevchenkovskaya in Zaporozhye region, they destroyed 5 HIMARS 2, and in Ilyichovka in near Donetsk Republic, another 2 HIMARS, and in another region they destroyed over 90 Polish soldiers of fortune. So look at that. You guys are done, right? A dozen of HIMARS and 90 Polish hired guns. That's ridiculous, right? He destroyed all of them personally. Well, I have another question here. Why does the Speaker of Ministry of Defense of Russian Federation not know his job? Why he's so poor with military terms that Ukrainians have to correct his speech? There are no high-precision strikes. There are strikes with high-precision weapons. High-precision strike is something from a sci-fi, at least in Russian parlance. So I don't know, he's maybe climbing with a usual grenade launcher to some satellite and shoots it with that high-precision strike. Sometimes they come with these fantastic stories about some sergeant who comes out and kills 32 targets and destroys a whole tank battalion. And then they take interview with some person out in the front with goggles and a helmet, so you can't really tell who it is, and then he talks that he's been destroying Ukrainian military for 9 months already, and he's fighting that war with his pals, and everything is awesome. So, General Lieutenant Konashenkov, please correct your speechwriter. There are no high-precision strikes. There are strikes with high-precision weapons, if we are talking in Russian military terminology. I don't think he's even military. I think he might be just an invited person. Well, then why is he posing in that role? Well, somebody has to, right, Olexiy? Somebody needs to look funny on TV, and it doesn't hurt when you put that one out. Remember the Avengers, that Soviet movie Avengers about the Civil War? So he does look like Valery from that movie, like a grown-up. But that one was a good character. This one is not so much. Yeah, no, he's not. He just looks like one. Especially The Crown of Russian Empire. There was a good movie of those series. Okay, let's go to other news. Angela Merkel. She's drifting, and check it out. Where is she drifting to? She did talk to their newspaper site, saying that Minsk agreements were signed in order to give Ukraine a chance to prepare for a war with Russia, and they could be used during the tribunal over Russian military criminals. And before that, she was saying that this is a huge achievement, those Minsk documents, that it was a great achievement for Ukraine's peace. Well, okay, so in this case, I have a question to her. Can she elaborate more? How, in particular, did these Minsk treaties and the role of Germany as the intermediary, how did that prepare us for that Russian invasion? How was that intended? Perhaps Germany was actually helping us to prepare for that. Maybe we didn't notice. Maybe we have not found some special package, some special support from Germany after those negotiations and those peace treaties. Maybe we'll find them somewhere near the border, 400 tanks and 1,000 of armored vehicles, or maybe financial help was provided to Ukraine over Minsk treaties. No? I can bring a ton of other examples from the other side, or Merkel's people who were precluding us from achieving what we wanted to get out of those negotiations. And behind all these decisions, all these forced signatures, was always a figure of Angela Merkel. Maybe she can sell it on the internal German market. In Ukraine, nobody will believe her. I think she's trying to sell her somehow, her opinion, and to change the stance of her figure. And she's slowly drifting to acknowledging that Putin's regime is not a good thing. Well, you know what, Mark? I will revive my respect to her when she acknowledges five elements: that she created Putin, she helped him grow up as an international figure in the regime, that she was protecting him on the international front from different sanctions, and that she destroyed German military. From 26 brigades, they have only 5 left, and that she put all German industries to be dependent upon Russian energy sources, and that she did everything in order to muzzle down Ukraine so it would not be precluding Germany from building a big economic trade from Vladivostok to Lisbon. And until she acknowledges that with semi-excuses and some hints, I would not have any respect for that figure right now. She grew Putin as a figure, as the international political heavyweight. Her share in his growth is at least 65-70%. She was defending his actions. She was defending his situations, his wars with Georgia. She was pushing Georgia from NATO and Ukraine as well. They were pushing Ukraine to sign those Minsk 1 and 2 agreements. They were defending Putin's continuous series of international crimes. Nord Streams, they were organized with whom? Right, during Angela Merkel's rule. And those were the main steps for Putin to actually conduct a full-fledged warfare on the ground, because now that he had a backup for his energy sources, he could attack Ukraine. So everything that we are suffering, that we're going through right now, that Europe is going through, that the world is going through, 70% of that is her creation. Whenever she acknowledges that, I will consider her to be a great politician, again, who made a lot of horrible mistakes, but also was not afraid to acknowledge them. Kind of like Steinmeier. Well, Steinmeier has a chance to correct everything. And he has a chance to correct his mistakes by making certain decisions. And he is doing it now. He's saying, yes, we were in error, we were wrong, but now we're correcting that. And if he gives these leopards, that'll be a huge step in that direction. Yeah, if he does that, he will remain in history as a politician who understood and realized the mistakes, and just acknowledging that would be a good step. But if he also will have enough time to change and to support Ukraine, that makes him much stronger political figure in history. And he started with the peace talks, and now he's talking that no peace talk is possible. So that's there is hope with the German president. And that whole story started with Germany trying to have natural gas at a better price, to be most competitive in Europe and most competitive in the world, to have higher profitable industries. than their neighbors, and Merkel definitely had that as a crown jewel in her activity. Steinmeier started with that, but he's running up that staircase and he's correcting things now. So soon he might actually cross that line that says great political figures in Germany's history. And it seems to me that Merkel is going down these stairs. And these statements that she's making are probably not adding much to her stance. Maybe she is just preparing people to the time when eventually she'll come out and say, yes, it was my fault. But right now she doesn't sound like that. Perhaps, Steinmeier made it possible. He came out and did that, and he's actually an acting president, and he is changing things. It's easier for him to do things. It's much easier for him to change things. But for her, it's much easier to come out and say things, make statements. She doesn't need to do anything now. She can just acknowledge the guilt. Well, back in the day, when we're looking at that with Steinmeier's plan, remember the sharpest moment of this war? There was the position of Germany when they tried to push Ukraine to sit down and negotiate and sign another set of agreements. Well, I don't know what to say about that. It's just a big political change happening. Maria Piragova recently died. Remember who was the intermediary with all that so-called humanitarian effort, who was supportive of establishing those DNR and LNR in the way it turned out? Well, who? French and German. All these backstage talks had a tune of, why are you resisting? Just bend over for Putin and don't make our trade deals with him more difficult. It would have been much more easier for us to make money if not for Ukraine. And that's what we felt in those negotiations. We were forced. We definitely were a thorn in their thigh in financial dealings with Putin and building that joint financial empire between Vladivostok and Lisbon. Just give up, guys. He wants a little bit from you. Just give it up. That's what they were asking for. And during our sessions, they were just taking Russian side, just blatantly taking Russian side, not even staying intermediary. They actually allowed some asshat from Donetsk fake republic to interrupt our first president of Ukraine when he was making his statement. Where is that first president of Ukraine and his political caliber, his political position, and that first paramilitary figure of that DNR, LNR. So they were actually not trying to call to any order. They were not trying to keep some semblance of order. They were reinforcing Russian side of negotiations. I've seen that all during those times. So why was she part of that Piragova? She was actually accused of terrorism in Ukraine and for some other criminal activity. I don't remember. And they were pushing her into the group to discuss prisoners' negotiations, basically forcing our delegation to stop and to not negotiate on many occasions because we could not, we refused to do negotiations with a terrorist. Oh, what did she have before that terrorism? There was some other criminal stuff. Yeah, there was probably some fraud. There's an accusation of fraud, if I remember, probably from government. Well, look, yeah, that didn't play out well for her. At the end, she recently was blown up. Yeah, well, it's war. Yeah, I don't like discussing people who died, but I would say, summing it up, say the deceased was not a moral person, right? How they put it sometimes. Yeah, back in the day, they were talking about Panikovsky. That's a famous comedy. He was only walking the administrations, getting some federal money for being the son of Lieutenant Schmidt, as if... No, he was also stealing geese. Yeah, that too, but he also was actually captured for violating some federal stuff. That was Balaganov doing that. No, it was Panikovsky. Okay, indeed, you're right. Sorry, I forgot. Okay. Little cultural detour. We've been 40 plus minutes live. A bunch of likes, over 100,000 of you clicked the button. Please continue. And I wanted to also touch on Medvedev, but let's talk about him tomorrow. We have a stream tomorrow in usual time, 10 p.m. Kiev, right? So we can continue about those news that we didn't finish today. Yep, we'll do it. Everything is on schedule for tomorrow. Okay, friends, continue clicking the like button. That absolutely helps. And continue sharing it. Oh, by the way, Mark, another cultural detour. Do you know how the word to quarrel sounds in Ukrainian? It is laika. Laika is, it's like basically quarreling or barking at each other. So every time you say click the like button, I'm always holding a smile at that moment. Well, I have to continue asking them to click that like button, because that definitely helps our videos to go up. And every time I'm accused of, hey, you're being too pushy, I'm looking at stats. That's important. You guys are helping us. So we are firmly moving towards the first 100,000 after those 2 million. Do not forget to subscribe to Olexiy's channel and, of course, to the Privateer station if you are listening or watching these streams in English. That helps us quite a bit. And we'll continue tomorrow. Right. All right. See you tomorrow then. Good luck. Have a good rest. And we'll go sleep too. It was nice to see you. Love y'all. Bye.